Where there is light, there must be shadow.
If, like many, you're burned out on checklist open world games, then Blacktail is the handcrafted journey you'll never forget. Playing as a young Baba Yaga in search of her lost sister, you chart your way through Slavic mythology to decide if you'll be a destroyer or a guardian of nature. All of this is tied together with first-person archery and magic slinging across a compact yet deep landscape brimming with personality. It's astounding just how deliberate each detail is in Blacktail. Not since Dishonored 2 have I played a game with so much choice and consequence, yet Blacktail is not an immersive sim. Almost every action has some parallel option, each making you feel clever in either a benevolent or mischievous way. You don't just say I'm the good guy or the bad guy at a handful of dialogue crossroads and then play on as if nothing's changed. Nor is the binary as simple as good and evil. Sometimes, even the noblest characters can advocate for harsher decisions, and vice versa. The objectives you face, the means of acquiring resources, and even basic moment-to-moment gameplay flows differently based on your alignment. You'll be locked out of certain resources and abilities based on not only your moral choices, but how far you're willing to see them through. Cause and effect actually matter in Blacktail, and it's refreshing to see. Choosing to walk a more ambiguous moral line grants the most options, but fewer perks. Committing to either course of action forces you to be cautious with navigating the world, with characters audibly responding if you act against their expectations of you. I know it sounds like I'm fixating on the morality aspect, but that's because Blacktail merges all of its systems together. You craft your arsenal from scavenging in the world. How you scavenge from the world influences your moral stance. Your moral stance influences what quest options and abilities you harness, including how effective you are at scavenging and fighting in several ways. By engaging in combat and quests, you need to cycle back to regather your resources. It's a constant loop that is just about varied enough to not get boring over a dozen hours in. Everything you're doing at any given point tends to feed back into your continued journey through the wilds, to such an extent that it's legitimately easy to stop worrying about the gamey aspects as you instinctively fall into Blacktail's rich ecosystem. As if this all wasn't enough, the storytelling of Blacktail is just as beautifully rendered across a variety of mechanisms. Brief, symbolic 2D dream sequences grant a glimpse inside Jaeger's memories, serving as gorgeous allegories to key moments leading up to the beginning of the game. Her regular back and forth conversations with the voice in her head are wonderfully acted, mixing contemporary with old world conversation styles. The world looks as if it was moulded by hand, with the sun and the stars above appearing as if painted by the gods. The pen and ink cutscenes are just as evocative, joined by an impatient narrator telling the tales of Jaeger's teenage friends and rivals in the days prior to the game. It's all incredibly elegant and simple to describe on paper, yet so deep once you dive in. There are so many little facets, like your broom that distracts enemies and heals you over time, or the quirky NPCs like the mailman Lava, fiendish devil and bloodthirsty ant empress with swords tied to her thorax. The mushrooms are more expressive than you'd think possible, capturing a Jim Henson energy as they greet, jeer and snark at you throughout your journey. Enemies are wonderfully varied, encouraging you to make liberal use of the dash move as you learn to line up rapid shots with your bow. Crafting new potions and arrows on the fly is incredibly simple, and if you ever overgather anything, you can find a living bag at your campsite who'll give you the leftovers if you have space later. Truthfully, there's very little to complain about at all with Blacktail. The save system, which requires collecting red flowers, is a bit of an inconvenience, especially if you're in too deep with a combat encounter, but those moments were thankfully very rare. The radial menu for crafting is a touch less elegant with a mouse rather than a controller. The self-destructing will-o-wisps are used a bit more often than is preferable, but you can easily dash past them. There is one optional boss fight that is currently far harder than necessary, but the reward for it is minimal enough that you can skip it. Trust me, you'll know it when you come across it. Beyond these small complaints though, the only thing that Blacktail has against it is that it calls for patient and curious players. If you're the sort who insists on only following a dotted line and ignoring everything off to the sides, you'll miss out on some of the best moments in Blacktail. Blacktail is a game to be savoured, peeling away its world a little more at a time. If you meet it halfway, you'll be left with a breath of fresh air rarely seen in the industry these days. It's a beautiful, touching piece of work that's bound to stick with you long after you finish it. Blacktail is just a world worth getting lost in. And that is the end of this review. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you found this video useful and enjoyed it. If you did, go on down below, hit the like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and give the bell icon a nudge so that you're notified whenever we've got new stuff. I've been Chris, you've been gorgeous, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, cheers my dears.